Rain pounded on the roof of the sleek black sedan as Detective Michael Rowan sped through the empty streets in the early hours of the morning. His phone had buzzed him awake minutes earlier, with news that was unsettling even in a city as rough as his. A renowned magician had disappeared, only this time it wasn't an act. The call had come from the Highline Theater, one of the city's oldest, where an illusionist named Lucian Hale had been performing for a sold-out crowd. Known for his daring escapes and mind-bending tricks, Lucian was the city's most talked-about magician. Tonight was supposed to be the grand finale of his run, a show the papers had described as the most dangerous illusion of the decade. But instead, something had gone horribly wrong. When Michael arrived, the theater was still and eerie, its grand foyer empty except for a few officers who nodded to him as he entered. Clara was already inside, pacing back and forth in front of the stage. "Can't sleep, huh?" she asked, raising an eyebrow as he approached. "And neither can you, apparently." Michael shrugged, then motioned toward the empty stage. "What do we know?" Lucian was supposed to perform his impossible box trick, Clara explained, gesturing toward a massive steel cage sitting on stage, surrounded by chains and locks. "The illusion is simple. He's locked inside the box, submerged in water, with only a few minutes to escape. But this time he didn't come out." Michael's eyes narrowed as he approached the box, taking in the details. The cage was sturdy, the locks formidable, and the glass sides thick enough to hold gallons of water. An assistant was supposed to monitor Lucian from offstage, but she hadn't seen anything unusual until he failed to reappear. Could he have slipped out through some hidden door? Michael asked, running his fingers along the cage's edges. Clara shook her head. "We checked. No hidden compartments, no trapdoors. It's like he just vanished." Michael frowned, examining the box more closely. Lucian Hale was known for his elaborate deceptions, for pushing the boundaries of reality and imagination. But this was no trick. Something had happened here. Something real. As he scanned the stage, his eye caught a glint of something wedged in the corner, a small, silver key. He picked it up, examining it closely. It looked like it belonged to a padlock, and it bore an inscription on one side, "To LH, with love." "Could this be part of the trick?" he asked, holding it up to Clara. She shrugged. "Not sure, but I'd say it's worth checking out. Let's see if anyone backstage knows about this." Backstage was a labyrinth of narrow hallways, dressing rooms, and old props gathering dust. Lucian's dressing room was surprisingly plain, furnished with a few mirrors, a chair, and a rack of costumes. But what caught Michael's attention was the small table covered with letters, photographs, and an old, leather-bound notebook. One of the letters was from a woman named Elise, Lucian's former partner and fellow magician. The note was brief and vaguely ominous. "Lucian, we both know what the impossible box is really about. You can't run from the truth forever. The stage may be your sanctuary, but sooner or later, reality catches up." It seems like he had a complicated relationship with this Elise, Clara murmured, reading over his shoulder. "Maybe we should pay her a visit." They found Elise in a small studio apartment downtown, her walls lined with posters of herself and Lucian performing together in younger days. She was petite, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, her face lined with worry as she let them in. "Lucian's gone, isn't he?" she asked, her voice soft, yet edged with something Michael couldn't quite place. Michael nodded, watching her carefully. "It appears that way. We found a letter from you in his dressing room. What did you mean about him running from the truth?" Elise sighed, settling into a chair. "Lucian and we were close, too close. Maybe. I helped him design the impossible box trick. It was supposed to be his magnum opus, a way to outshine every other illusionist. But it was dangerous. I told him that, but he wouldn't listen." "What was so dangerous about it?" Clara asked, leaning forward. "It wasn't just an illusion," Elise explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lucian wanted to do something that would defy explanation, something that would make people question reality itself. He was obsessed with finding a way to escape for real. He was convinced there was a way out, a way to disappear and come back only if he wanted." Michael exchanged a glance with Clara, a growing unease settling in his chest. This wasn't just a trick gone wrong. It was the work of a man who'd taken his obsession too far. "Did he mention anything specific about the night of the performance?" Michael asked. Elise hesitated, then nodded slowly. He called me a few nights ago. Said he was going to push the trick further than ever before. Said he'd found an answer. I didn't understand what he meant, but he sounded different, like he'd finally found what he was looking for. They returned to the theater, Michael deep in thought as he considered Elise's words. Lucian was a master illusionist, yes, but he was still just a man. Whatever he'd thought he'd found, he couldn't truly escape the laws of reality. As they reviewed the footage from the performance, Michael noticed something strange. Just before Lucian climbed into the impossible box, he slipped a piece of paper to one of his assistants, a young man named Jared, who looked visibly nervous as he accepted it. "Let's bring Jared in," Michael said, motioning for Clara to call him. When Jared arrived, he was pale, his hands shaking as he twisted a ring around his finger. He glanced nervously from Michael to Clara, clearly aware that they suspected him of something. "What was on that note Lucian gave you?" Michael asked, his tone sharp. Jared hesitated, then pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. It read, "Meet me at the corner of 5th and Main at midnight. If I'm not there, you know what to do." "What did he mean by that?" Michael asked, studying Jared's reaction. I don't know," Jared stammered. Lucian was always cryptic, talking about life and death like they were things he could manipulate. He said the impossible box would be his final act, that he'd found a way to truly vanish. I thought he was kidding, but now I don't know. That night, Michael and Clara waited at the corner of 5th and Main, hoping for some sign of Lucian. Midnight came and went, and the street remained empty. But just as they were about to leave, a car pulled up, and a figure stepped out, a woman in a long coat, her face obscured by shadows. "Detective Rowan?" she asked, her voice low and measured. Michael nodded. "And you are?" "A friend," she replied cryptically. "Lucian told me to meet you here if something happened to him. He didn't want his disappearance to remain unsolved." She handed Michael an envelope, then slipped back into the car, leaving as quickly as she'd arrived. Michael opened the envelope, revealing a single, typewritten page. It was a manifesto of sorts, in Lucian's distinct, meticulous handwriting. He wrote of his desire to challenge reality, to create an illusion so perfect that even he could not see through it. He wrote of pushing beyond the boundaries of perception, of finding a way to transcend himself. "Was this a suicide note?" Clara asked, frowning. Michael shook his head. "No, it's something else. I think Lucian truly believed he could disappear, that he could bend reality to his will. But he left us clues, as if he wanted someone to follow the trail." The letter ended with a cryptic line, "To find what was lost, look beyond the illusion." The following days were spent combing through every piece of Lucian's life, every illusion he'd created. Finally, they found something hidden among his belongings in the theater, a small, false compartment beneath the stage floor. Inside was a journal filled with Lucian's notes on his impossible box trick. In one entry, he described his method, a series of mirrors and lights, hidden angles that would allow him to slip through a trapdoor undetected. It was a complex illusion, but it was grounded in reality. Lucian hadn't found a way to escape in the supernatural sense. He'd merely devised a way to disappear without a trace. But when Michael and Clara followed the final steps of Lucian's plan, they found him, or rather, what remained of him. Behind the theater, hidden in an abandoned basement, they discovered his last grim illusion. An empty chair, a single spotlight, and Lucian's coat draped across it. It was clear he had staged his own disappearance, retreating into the shadows to let his legend live on. For Lucian, it was the ultimate trick, one final illusion, leaving everyone to wonder where he'd gone, or if he was still out there somewhere, watching. And in the end, Michael realized that was exactly what Lucian had wanted, not to be found, but to be remembered.